We got more in the NFL right now. We got Reid Fowler, Draftkings NFL analyst, joining us now. Don't forget about the Draftkings NFL pool. Listen, you can win up to $100 million in giveaways with their free-to-play Survivor Pool Week 1. It's so simple. I even got involved in it, so you know it can't be that complicated. Listen, you can compete for a shot at $1 million by entering the $1 million football Survivor Pool. All entries will be instantly given a free reward between $5 and $25,000. One lucky fan will be guaranteed to win $1 million in cash simply by opting in to the Golden Ticket giveaway. And let me tell you something. When I mean that it's instantly rewarded, I jumped on this on DraftKings, and I was instantly rewarded $50 into my account. So this is no BS. This is legitimately, you play, you opt in, you get a chance. I already got my Survivor Pool picked in. It was the Chiefs. It was pretty simple. So if I can do it, you can do it. Jump on DraftKings right now with their Survivor Pool. And speaking of DraftKings, Reid Fowler joins us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Reid, how's it going?
Good, Josh. This is exciting, right? This is exciting news. I'm sure it's even more exciting for guys like Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara. Just minutes ago have signed big deals, or at least they're going to be signing their extensions. And so I feel great, but they have to be feeling really, really good.
Well, also considering the fact that both of those guys were dealing with some injury issues, and it seems like we used to live in a world where running backs don't get paid, right? Well, I guess what? Running backs are getting paid. And by the way, Cooper Kupp is signing a deal as well. So everybody's getting paid right now. It's like an Oprah show.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Kamara, 34.3 guaranteed. Christian McCaffrey got 30, right? Ezekiel Elliott, 28. Dalvin Cook, 28. Even Lev Bell and Derrick Henry, they're getting their money as well. So, it looks like this is kind of what we saw too. And I don't know if it's too much of the same thing, but this is what we saw with wide receivers. Is that before this class of wide receivers came through, and then probably next year as well, where we're going to have a solid wide receiver class out of college football. We'll see what comes of the college football season now, but we're probably going to start to see more and more of that as time progresses because teams want to secure their running backs.
Yeah, and of course, you think about those two teams. One of the things they both have in common is they both have teams that invested a lot in their defense already. So if you're already investing in your defense, you got to make sure the rest of the team around them is all set up because defense is all well and good, but if you can't score any points, you got some problems.
Yeah. Well, it says Stephon Diggs gone too, right, in Minnesota. You're going to vacate a ton of production, not literal, but also to how the defenses prepare for your offensive scheme, right? Ola BC Johnson is someone that a lot of people are talking up, right? Justin Jefferson, the rookie, he's clearly going to need to take a step up. Herb Smith Jr. is someone that a lot of people are keeping their eye on. But Dalvin Cook is the centerpiece of that offense, right? You also look at Philadelphia with Miles Sanders dealing with his own set of injuries. Is he someone that now is going to be the centerpiece of that offense? We see Jalen Reagor is someone that is getting healthier much quicker than we expected. And so now when you start to look at the landscape of the NFL, and especially this year too, right, Josh, you have to make sure that consistency and continuity is front and center of your plan, right? You want to make sure that your guys are feeling confident and that your system is a continuation of what we had last year to this year. And so you're probably going to see a lot of these organizations making sure that their centerpieces on their offense and defense are going to be secured for years to come.
Now, speaking of that consistency, as somebody, whether you're drafting for a year-long fantasy football, as many of us did, or if you're jumping on DFS tomorrow for the NFL, do you factor in that history? Because, for example, Doug Peterson, he's been in Philadelphia for a few years. The offense is well known. Sean Payton, for example, been in New Orleans for over 10 years. Consistent. We don't 100% know what some of these other new coaches and coordinators are bringing to their team. So as somebody who's selecting, do you have that in the back of your mind at all?
A little bit, right? A little bit. Kind of the same sense of how much of us really have the bye weeks, penciled in to say, oh, wait, I don't want to pick this, wide receiver 2 because he has the same bye week as my tight end, right? We kind of have in the back of our mind that probably around round 5 or 6, you're like, oh shoot, three or four guys that are going to have the same bye week. But, you have to factor it in a little bit. And the reason, or I guess the procedure of how in season long I factor it in is more so the quarterbacks and the rookie wide receivers that are going to be in new systems. So Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is in a good spot in Carolina against the Las Vegas Raiders at home, right? I wouldn't be drafting Teddy Bridgewater because I'm not entirely sure how he's going to play just yet. But for DFS, I'm really looking at that game to be a higher, probably one of the highest game totals, a sneaky over in that. I believe it's around 47 right now, 47.5, 48, just around that number. But I'm looking at that as a potential swerve spot over the chalk of the other quarterback wide receiver stacks, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Jackson getting a ton of buzz in the DFS world because Deshaun Jackson, we know what he does week one. He goes absolutely berserk, and you're going against a Washington football team that their secondary is going to look extremely different than last year. That front seven is formidable for Washington, but that secondary, not the same. And so I'm going to look at a little bit more of the question marks on DFS, use that as a leverage spot against the field. But in season long, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the guys like the centerpieces in the offense and the continuity, especially because this year we're not going to have, or we haven't seen NFL football before Thursday.
Reid Fowler joining us, the Boardwalk kind of hotline on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Reid T. Fowler for year-long NFL Draftkings analysis, as well as the PGA Tour as well. He's always great on that as well. Reid, speaking of the Eagles, I want to know your perspective on in the past. We know Zach Ertz has been a volume guy, right? He's a guy who gets a lot of touches, a lot of targets, but the expectation is now those targets might be a little less with Rager, with Deshaun Jackson, Dallas Goedert next year in the system. You have Greg Ward potentially being a more heavily used slot guy. So do you feel like Zach Ertz's value in fantasy has diminished at all?
A little bit, right? A little bit. We've seen his targets go down year over year. The health is always an issue with Zach Ertz, or just tight ends in general, right? Tight ends get hurt more than wide receivers do because of the nature of their business and the nature of their where they usually operate, which is across the middle, right? And so we see that the health of Zach Ertz, he's a little bit older. But having said that, if you look at this game specifically, he's totaled 115 yards and a touchdown in those two games last year against Washington. And Goddard, if there is a tight end handcuff in fantasy and season long, Goddard is that one guy, right? We talk about Alexander Mattison or Tony Pollard or Kareem Hunt, for instance, as the backup running backs, that if they were propelled into a RB1 or that starting role because something their teammate got hurt in front of them, they would be a top 5 player or considered a number 1 player for every single week. Dallas Goedert is that tight end for Zach Ertz, right? That if anything happened to Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert will be a top 5 tight end, potentially a league winner. But having said that, we know Carson Wentz loves Zach Ertz. So especially in this game, I'm looking at Ertz to have his value and keep that there. But yeah, over the course of the season, Jalen Reagor is going to need time to ramp up. We don't know the health of Alshon Jeffrey, of even Deshaun Jackson, for instance, right? And so looking at Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, this tight end match, this tight end duo, I really, really like their chances this year.
Let's walk around the league a little bit with some different players because I know a lot of people, whether I see people asking our shows or asking other places, I feel like the same handful of names keep coming up. We want to give some clarity for people out there. I got to start with the guy in New England, though, Cam Newton. Cam claims that we're going to see something that we've never seen from him in this Patriots offense. I don't even know how to interpret that because Cam Newton spent so many years, and let's be realistic, a dumbed-down NFL offense that almost anything that's more involved than what we saw in Carolina might be an upgrade.
Yeah, like when you talk about Josh McDaniels and you think about what he's done in the past, right, with the Patriots, but also with the Broncos, with Tim Tebow, that was his guy when he was the head coach for Denver. He drafted Tim Tebow. You start to think, you get really excited, right? You get really excited for a guy like Cam Newton, who's an athletic freak. You're seeing that type of body and that skill set on a quarterback is something that you always have to be excited for. And this guy's got a chip on his shoulder. right? That's where I'm not, breaking any news here, any hot takes, is that Cam Newton, he wants to torch the NFL, and he's looking at that schedule. We saw that when, that video came out on social media where he's like, this team passed on me, this team passed on me. So I think what we're going to see from Cam Newton is maybe a quarterback that's going to harken back to the years of 2011 where he was a rookie and he just, came on the scene and absolutely torched the NFL. I'm extremely excited. You got to think that his weapons in that wide receiving room is a little bit, down to what, like, Carolina's got really good receivers over there. But I'm excited for someone like Cam Newton to be in a system now where he feels like he can flourish. And we can never count out the Patriots. That's always a losing proposition when you think that they're down and they're 7-point underdogs, whatever it is, or not 7-point, excuse me. They're going to be underdogs throughout the season in terms of where they were before. That's something that I'm very interested to see, and especially if you got Cam Newton late in rounds in season long, you got to be excited for this guy.
Let's head over to Baltimore. What do you do with the running back position? They drafted J.K. Dobbins, is being very highly lauded coming out of training camp. You already had that Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards kind of, not a dual operation, but Gus Edwards did have over 700 rushing yards last year. So what do you do with the Baltimore rushing situation? Do you jump on a guy? Do you stay away from it?
So for DFS, I actually like attacking running backs, maybe in this game specifically. So on the Cleveland side, I'll just mention them really quickly, is Nick Chubb, right, is someone that's not being rostered quite a bit in this game because we think Baltimore has a strong run defense. But that's exactly what you can leverage is these good running backs against good defensive units. A lot of people shy away from that, but I think Nick Chubb is going to be in a nice spot. But if you look at the Ravens backfield, you gotta be excited about J.K. Dobbins. I'm not worried about the depth chart, that he's fourth on the depth chart. I think that's just semantics. That's what they're trying to do. But if you look at just what Mark Ingram can do in this backfield, and we saw it last year, is that he's a guy that can get you 15 touches, probably nothing in the passing game, so he doesn't have a huge ceiling, but 15 touches against a Cleveland run defense that was not great last year. The one thing that makes me a little bit less excited about this game specifically is that Jim Woods came over with Kevin Stefanski, and Woods has actually been a solid.
And we just lost Reid there. He just disappeared there for a moment. We'll try to get him back there to finish his point there because he literally just dropped in the middle of his point there. Don't forget about the DraftKings. Up to $100 million in giveaways for their free-to-play Survivor Pool Week 1. Fans can compete for a shot at $1 million by entering the $1 million Survivor Pool with DraftKings. I think we got Reid back here. Reid, is that you? We get you back now?
Yep, still here. Sorry about that.
It's all good, yeah.
There, but so I was just talking really quickly about that Cleveland defense. Joe Woods, his time in San Francisco and his time in Denver, he was really good against mobile quarterbacks and against running defense. And so Cleveland, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Cleveland. I think they're going to be a team that, a lot of people were excited about in the past, in the preseason, and they got burned. But I think Cleveland's on the uptick.
And one more before I let you go, and I know we're running out of time here, but slot receivers. Last year, a guy like Greg Ward was a huge value in DFS. One guy who's a slot receiver that I'm looking at very closely is Larry Fitzgerald because of all the weapons on that offense. So who are maybe some slot receivers people can get with some value this year?
Yeah, I mean, one that I think a lot of people are kind of talking about, but still is someone that you should keep your eye on is Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson is in Los Angeles with the Rams. He's going to be someone that's, backing up Cooper Kupp a little bit, right? Which is weird to say that is someone that you like, but the Rams love him. The Rams love Van Jefferson. He's the number 3 receiver right now. I think if anything happens to Cooper Kupp, or even if it doesn't, right, that offense, again, looking at some of these offenses that disappointed last year but still have the correct scheme and the coaching staff around them, I think Van Jefferson is one guy that you got to look at. And then Juju Smith-Schuster moving back into the slot position. He played wide. He played out last season. Didn't do so hot, but he gets Ben Roethlisberger back and he moves back to his natural position. So those are some of the guys that I'm looking at.
Follow him on Twitter at Reid T. Fowler for all of your NFL, fantasy football, DFS advice, and also the PGA Tour as well. As all guests, he appeared today on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Reid, always appreciate the time and working through the tech difficulties there.
All right, Josh, take care.